All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Daytona Beach. How's everybody? There we go. Got a nice rowdy crowd. I like that. That's very good. Good morning. We're happy to see everyone. My name is Tyler LeCompte. I'm one of the organizers here for the Women Cup Daytona Beach group. If you're a first-time attendee, can you raise your hand? Yes, our presenter is first-time attendee. I'm wondering Nice segue. That was good. That was good. All right, so we'll just skip to it since everybody knows what Million Cups is because you're here for more than one time. Today we have Sarah Trasca. Sarah is a two-time entrepreneur in terms of she has two businesses she's going to share with us today. She has an eatery that does some artisan quality food in a casual, fast setting, and also a Platypus Labs, which is going to talk about how she can help you unlock innovation potential within their teams. So without further ado, let's welcome Sarah.
Well, thanks everybody, and good morning. I had a chance to meet most of you as I welcomed you in, and just really happy to be here. Again, this is my first meeting, so I'm very enthusiastic. I'm coming from the Jacksonville area. I live in Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. We don't have a chapter, but I was just talking to Michael. Maybe we should. So thank you again for having me. And today, my focus is to share with you 6 surprising lessons that I've learned that we can apply to entrepreneurism for both big companies and little companies. All right, so the question is big or small, right? Here I'm talking about businesses, of course. And, you know, yeah, exactly. It's not that kind of meeting. All right. Both have distinct advantages and disadvantages. And I came from about 15 years in corporate America and then have been a part of several different startups. So this is from my own experience. But I would say from the big companies side, they have tremendous resources, right? They're big for a reason. They've built networks. They have big budgets. They have partners. They have a wealth of information coming from their tenure. But they have a lot of red tape. There's decision-making, hierarchy, and oftentimes it's very bureaucratic and clunky, right? On the small business side, generally they're more nimble. They're a little bit more able to pivot quickly, make decisions on their business quickly in order to change. But they lack the experience, the partnerships, the networks that the big companies have. So the examples that I'm going to share with you today are from both big and small. And the blessing is that we can learn from both, and I'm going to give you some examples of how both big and small can teach each other to have some economic benefit and business impact. So I'm known on my team at Platypus Labs for being an innovation badass. Hard to believe, I know, but it is true. And as an innovation badass, the question I have for you is, do I have a tattoo? And it's a rhetorical question. You can just think in your own head whether an innovation badass would have a tattoo. And the answer is no, I don't. But if I did, it would say, what would Ari do? Ari and Paul, pictured here, are the owners and founders of Zingerman's from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Anybody ever been to Zingerman's in Ann Arbor, Michigan? So you know what I'm talking about. These guys built a business out of a 12-seat deli in 1982 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Today, they do over $60 million in annual revenue. They're fantastic. When I set foot into their establishment, it changed my life. Not only was the food outstanding, unparalleled, but their business principles, their operating philosophies changed the way I will think forever. So their food is recognized as some of the top in the country. This is their Reuben sandwich, which former President Barack Obama says is his favorite Reuben. Oprah says that Zingerman's is her food mecca. So they have a number of celebrity endorsers. They have a coffee company, they have several restaurants, they have a candy company, they have a beautiful artisan bakery. They make all sorts of wonderful things, and they have a mail order catalog. You can literally get this Reuben sandwich anywhere in the world. They will ship it to you, in addition to their homemade gelato and all sorts of other things. Pretty special. And again, while I love their food and their passion for service, and it's been a lot of the foundation for my restaurant, what I love and what I have taken away the most are their operating principles. And here's one of the first that we can learn from. They employ an open book finance policy, meaning that they have transparency to all of their employees, whether it's their hostesses, their dishwashers, the person doing their design work. Every single person on their team knows how much they make, where they make it, and how their daily role impacts the overall financial picture of the company. So you've got big companies, right? You've got public companies that have an annual report that they publish, so everyone knows, kind of the profitability and those sorts of things. But what they do that is different is that they sit each person down in their entire organization and explain exactly how that person has an impact on the day, the month, the year, the revenue that they're bringing in, the profitability, and even their dishwashers understand how the decisions that they make affect the entire organization. So this open book management philosophy is a pretty radical approach. I would say most small private businesses usually don't share financials with their employees. They don't trust their employees. They don't empower their employees to know and understand. Think of the impact that it has on the employees. They not only feel trusted, but they feel empowered to think and make decisions like they're an owner of the company. So this is the first lesson today. And I'll close this story by saying if you ask Zingermans if size matters, they're going to say yes. They're talking, of course, about the size of their sandwich, which sells for about $17 to $20. Absolutely incredible. But those who've been there know that it's worth it. If you ever go to Ann Arbor or the Detroit area, go to Zingermans. All right, so full financial engagement, teaching shared wallet, teaching employees how they can impact the overall financial picture. To give you a little sense of who I am passionate about innovation and helping to unleash the creativity that is usually dormant in individuals and in organizations. As I mentioned, I started my career at General Mills. I was there for about 15 years, building brands, launching businesses, helping to support pretty massive sized brands. I also was a part of several startups, and then a few years back I opened my own business called Trasca and Company Eatery, which is in Connemara Beach. That restaurant is based off of my grandmother's cooking. I serve a sandwich that my family has been serving for over 45 years, starting in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I brought with me some free panino coupons, so if you'd like to come up to Connemara, please join us and try. I've got some extras over there. The panino is pretty unique. It's baked flat like a pizza with all of the ingredients on top, and then it's rolled up, cut in half, but you eat it like a sandwich. So it's almost like a roll-up with everything inside. Our most popular is called the turkey avocado. It has an all-natural turkey breast, Swiss cheese, fresh tomato, fresh avocado, and a homemade ranch. We make everything from scratch, so that's kind of fun. So I work for Platypus Labs. I also own the restaurant. I have the pleasure of advising some of the most powerful brands in the world. And I've had a front row seat to see exactly what happens when brands, when leaders, when organizations fully embrace that entrepreneurial spirit. And I've also had a chance to see what happens when they do not. So I also have the blessing of a blended family. I have 5 children, and we are carefully crafting one unit. Okay, so question for you. Does anybody know the statistics on restaurants? Well, they're pretty grim. So 75% of restaurants fail within the first 5 years, pretty bad. 94% of restaurants fail when they go into a place where the restaurant before them has failed. And we actually had both of those to contend with. So I'm very proud we're at 4.5 years. So certainly, the meat is not in the barn. We don't count our chickens, but we have had a number of very successful points, including winning a number of awards. So that's been pretty fun. About 4 years into the restaurant, so about 1.5 years ago, I decided to restart my career. I hired a general manager, which allowed me to go back and start to be a part of Platypus Labs. So that's been pretty fun. Platypus Labs is based out of Detroit. We're an innovation enablement firm, so we do a lot of consulting and a lot of training. All right, so my next story for you, and my next lesson, is the story of Dr. Kevin Manias. And he was actually the one in charge of the ER at the Sunrise Hospital in Las Vegas, Nevada, the night of the Mandalay Bay mass shooting. With the volume, severity of patients and their injuries coming in through the doors of that ER, it would have paralyzed the staff, the ER, in almost every case. But there's two lessons that we learned from Kevin Maines. The first is that, whether this is serendipity or just good planning, he had been practicing for a crisis for years. He knew that they were the hospital closest to the strip, right, with thousands, millions of people. So he was practicing in his head what he would do if a mass casualty, if a crisis came along. So when the ambulances started coming with 5 patients, 12 patients, 7 patients, he stood in the center of the ambulance bay and he knew what to do. He was almost like an air traffic controller. He sent people to the places that he had predetermined prior to that night. And here's what he did. He actually tagged the rooms. He labeled the rooms. He sent the people that were in the most critical condition, that were literally dying, into the red room. That's where he sent his surgeons. In the orange room, he labeled that orange because these patients were going to crash. They were going to go into severe spot where they needed critical care in approximately a half an hour to an hour. In the yellow room, he sent the more stable patients, and the green room held the folks that could wait until the morning, probably for surgery. So he sent the caregivers to the specific rooms, and he sent the patients to the most specific rooms. This is directly against protocol of the hospital. In fact, I mean, it's pretty funny, but I mean, he was in trouble for a while, and then now his Manias method is taught to ERs and hospitals all over the world. It's pretty funny. But anyway, so he stood there like an air traffic controller, sending people. He controlled the bottlenecks. He managed the flow of the patients coming in, and he's credited with saving hundreds of lives that probably would not have been saved had he not gone against that protocol. He thought on the spot, like a small entity, right? His entrepreneurial spirit was do the most good in that moment, and he was able to save the most people. So the first business lesson that we've got from him is the visualization, the actual thought process to think forward. What might happen in the worst case scenario? How can I plan for that? And certainly we hope that the worst case doesn't happen, but at least if something happens along the spectrum, you're ready for it. The second lesson was managing the flow, breaking down the chaos into manageable pieces and actually providing some relief to those bottlenecks. The next example from a small business comes to us from the Netherlands. This is a Dutch manufacturer of bicycles called Van Moof. They manufacture high-end custom bicycles. These are hand-assembled. They're shipped directly to their customers' doors in these big, giant boxes. Well, the problem started when people started complaining that the bikes were getting damaged in shipping. And as this company, the high-end company that they were, they're actually known as the Tesla of commuter bikes, they had to start offering refunds, replacements, returns, repairs, and it was getting pretty costly for the company, not to mention it was damaging their brand's reputation. So the leaders of the company got together and the CEO asked a question that got the group thinking. How is it that those flat-screen TV companies can ship their flat-screen TVs in almost an identical package without having any damage? So the team started brainstorming. They started coming up with all sorts of solutions. And they thought of option A, which was to double the packaging. Let's protect the bikes a little more, double the packaging. Okay, pretty good. Option B, let's use one of those white-gloved courier services to hand-deliver the bikes to the people's doors. And they kept pressing forward. And I'll tell you that as human beings, we oftentimes brainstorm a number of options, and then we narrow them down into options A, B, or C. Well, I would like to argue that pushing forward even further will oftentimes give you some wacky ideas, but those can be the game changers. And at Platypus, we like to call it the option X. All right, so back to Van Moof. They kept pushing. They kept bringing more creativity. Option A, option B, option C. They kept going all the way to option X. They literally printed a flat-screen TV on the outside of their package. Unbelievable, right? It cost them a little bit more in ink. It reduced the breakage of the bikes by over 70% overnight. Overnight. Because they pressed forward, they came up with option X. So that's the lesson, again, from a small company. Pressing forth, bringing forth wacky, unusual, unorthodox ideas. what are those option X ideas that can be game changers? All right, so just a recap of the 3 from small businesses. Zingerman's, managing the individual employee's knowledge of the financial picture and how they can be a part of that. Dr. Mañez gave us a great example of how to manage the flow, manage the chaos. And then Van Woof, pushing past traditional boundaries, all the way to option X. Okay, so David versus Goliath, right? Little versus big. If you're an athlete, you don't want to compete against someone who's the equal to you or even lesser skilled, right? You want to compete against someone who is better than you, to school you, to teach you the skills so that you're better. The big guys are big for a reason. So here's a fun example of a big player. Ben & Jerry's is a very colorful ice cream manufacturer, right? They have great packages, they have fun flavor names, they have delicious ice cream. But they constantly reinvent themselves. In the grocery store, if a product isn't performing, right, it's got slow turns, the grocer usually kicks it right out. Well, Ben & Jerry's gets ahead of that. They know which flavors are no longer performing as they should. Here's what they do. They bury them. I mean, they literally bury the flavors. They hold a funeral. They post online. They engage their consumers. This is a site for the dead and buried. When a flavor is no longer performing as it should, they say goodbye to it. They let go. They make room for their next flavor so that the grocer doesn't bring in another product, right? Another manufacturer's ice cream. So the business funeral is something that I would like to share with you as a great opportunity for us to say goodbye to a process, a product, a method that's no longer performing as it should. Hold a business funeral. Somebody could even bring a cake. Say goodbye to what's no longer working in your business and make room for the next. The St. Regis Hotel. This is a huge chain. They're owned by Starwood now, and this particular story comes from Washington, D.C. So the St. Regis Hotel, like us, they wanted to grow, they wanted to compete. They took a look around at that hotel room, and we noticed the empty closet, right? Every time you check into a hotel, the closet's completely empty, right? So they got an idea. They teamed up with luxury retailer Neiman Marcus. Here's what happens now. Before you check in, about a week prior, they send you an email asking for your fashion preferences, your sizes. When you arrive to your hotel, instead of being greeted by that empty closet, you find one filled with beautiful selections that are hand-picked for you. Try them on in the comfort of your room. If you like it, take it with you. It's automatically billed to your hotel bill. If not, no problem, leave it behind. So think of what they did with this one little idea, right? They created a competitive advantage. They did so with zero capital because they partnered with someone else to bring the goods. So that's our lesson. Our lesson is the symbiosis, creating win-win partnerships, creating a relationship like the clownfish and the sea anemone. Do you know this symbiosis, symbiotic relationship? They help each other. They can't exist without each other. What are those win-win relationships and partnerships that we can forge in our businesses that create an advantage, that create a difference maker? Okay, another good example that comes from a big company. This one is coming from Canada. So a while back, an Air Canada flight was grounded on the runway in Toronto for over 7 hours because of the weather conditions. Now, the poor passengers on the flight, after they ate all the peanuts and they drank all the booze, they were getting pretty restless. They were begging the flight attendants, "You've got to feed us." Pretty soon, a well-intentioned flight attendant gets on the intercom and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we're very sorry, but there's nothing we can do." How many times have we heard that, right? Nothing can be done. Well, lucky for the passengers on that aircraft, a nearby WestJet employee had a different idea because he believed that every barrier could be penetrated. About 45 minutes after that intercom announcement, he rolls up one of those rolling staircases to the outside of the plane. He knocks on the door, and when they open the door, he's standing there with an armful of pizzas. It enabled amazing social media. Check this out. awkward but funny moment. WestJet guy walks in and says, "Hey guys, I'm from WestJet and we do things differently. Anybody want some pizza?" Think of the amazing loyalty that was created in that moment. Not just for the 200 people on the aircraft, but for the thousands of people that saw this on social media. Now this guy didn't have any more creativity, any more entrepreneurism than any of us. But he was able to draw upon that skill set and win the day. He believed every barrier can be broken. If you have enough passion, enough ideas, enough creativity, even the most difficult challenges will melt away. So a summary of the lessons that we learned from the big guys. Ben and Jerry showed us how to say goodbye to things not performing any longer. Hold that business funeral, make way for the next. The St. Regis Hotel showed us how providing that partnership, coming up with a difference maker, a win-win symbiosis. And lastly, the WestJet employee that pushed the boundaries of conventional thinking and was able to save the day because he believed that every barrier can be broken. Okay, so summary, lessons from big and small. These guys both have lessons to offer. Both can harness the power of entrepreneurism to push the boundaries, to be creative for economic benefit, for business impact, and just by caring about their guests, their consumers, their clients. All right, so those are the 6 lessons. I appreciate you listening, and I'd love to take some questions from you folks.
So you literally.
Get real close. All right.
There you go.
Okay. Any questions?
Yep.
Yes, Rick from a company called Global Cold. When you have a business, a restaurant, you went out and you hire a manager, having recently sold a good-sized business, and I tried to manage around a bunch of times, and it just never, the customers just, how do you deal with the thing that
Where's Sarah? I came in here, Sarah's always been here, now where's Sarah?
Yes. Yes, that happens all the time actually, and thank you for the question. So I have, I'm very proud of the service that I've given to my community. I stood on the front lines for 4 solid years, serving their families, getting to know my guests, etc. So when I left, that was a pretty big departure, and I would say some people aren't over it still. They give me a lot of grief. But I hired someone, and actually I will tell you that I acquired her catering business. And I brought her on as the general manager, and I gave her some of the business. So she is now a part owner, which has made her kind of that arm-in-arm partner that I needed. So I would say she's an operating partner. More than just a general manager, she has the ownership of an owner, because she is an owner, and has the expertise and the business acumen and the level of service that we are almost twins in the type of service we give. So I stand very proudly in front of the decision that I know the people are getting the same care, if not better care from her than they were from me. And I know that they would like to see me, but I have come to very good terms with that decision. So yeah, it's not easy, but that's how I did it.
Hi Sarah, I'm Steve Keeler. I was a brand manager at Ralston Purina and Campbell Soup.
Wonderful.
And I got a couple of questions for you. You were a brand manager at Pillsbury. What brands did you work on, number one? Number two, how did you take all the aspects from your brand management experience and become a specialist in possibility thinking? Your examples are great, and your presentation was fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good to know another CBG alum, right? All right, so I was at General Mills, actually, which acquired Pillsbury, or if you're from the Pillsbury side, you say it was a merger. But anyway, so the 2 big businesses came together, and there was a big house of brands. And I was able to support a great number of them. I supported Betty Crocker. I supported, Pillsbury, the entire kind of house of businesses. The brand that I I loved the most though, maybe I'll share that with you, was the Box Tops for Education brand. Do you guys know that brand? So you clip out the little box top, they're worth 10 cents, you send them in, and the school gets money. And at the time, and I'm sorry I don't know the actual figure now, but at the time I left General Mills about 5.5 years ago, we had given $525 million to schools since the program had started. I mean, it's phenomenal, right? I get goosebumps even. So I think one of the wonderful things about being a part of a brand management or brand world is the level of expertise that they teach you. It is just a tremendous learning lab. It's really fabulous. You get to learn a lot of different cross-functional areas, get to work with a lot of really smart people. The things that I apply to my business, I mean, I probably don't even know how much it has impacted me, but I would say that launching a brand, I knew some of the things from my days at General Mills that are small but make a large impact. And I'll give you a real silly example, but you probably have seen the Trasca logo here. I actually worked with a trademark attorney to make sure that I could put a TM there, right? And now actually this November, I can change it to a circle R. Just a real small thing, but my brand is protected. If I at some point go out and try to find an investor and make it a corporation, I have no idea if I'll do that. But there are things that I did at the beginning to protect my business that I only knew from my days at General Mills. I only knew that that was important. Things like the consumer lens, trying to find what a value, an unmet need in the community was. And the restaurant is actually well positioned to serve families. I know that's silly. Ponte Vedra Beach is actually kind of known for a golf community, and you think it's a little older, but it's actually not. The demographics have been shifting, and there's a lot of families. There's a new developing community called Nocatee, which has doubled the size of Ponte Vedra, and it's all families. It's all young families, young professionals, etc. So anyway, my point is, when I moved from Minnesota to Ponte Vedra Beach, there were no restaurants that I felt comfortable taking my children to, my young children. Lots of wonderful, wonderful restaurants, but all white linen, all places you wouldn't take a 2-year-old. So I knew that when I started my restaurant, I wanted it to be very rustic. If someone scrapes up the table, if someone spills something, we don't care. It's made to last. It's made in a rustic, we call it a vintage East Coast eatery. All of these things, again, I did with the thought process of, down the line, I want to make sure I'm positioning myself to make sure I'm filling that niche in the community that's an unmet need. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Hey, Sarah, my name's Ron Wojciechowski, and I'm now with Wise Home Team Realty, but if you go way back in my history, I was a restaurant guy.
No way, yeah.
And to put a date on it, 1988, so it's a long time ago, but I opened up a sports bar before there was even such a thing out there, so filling the gap. So I commend you on everything that you've done. You really apply those lessons. So I'm looking at the way that you started your place, thinking back to the day, maybe I did that too. So my question really revolves around this. Initially, when you start out, it's grassroots. You're doing every job, wearing every hat. Eventually, you get some people to fill some of those roles. Most things are word of mouth in the beginning, and now in this age, we have SEO, but we also have digital. So are you finding that as you exit the business, you're still perhaps the face of the business, but you're not there anymore? So is it SEO, driving your website? I'm sure repeat business is a part of it, but are you also introducing digital to keep that moving forward?
Yeah, great question. And digital certainly has become or is a big part of it. When I launched, I mean, just like most restaurants, most small businesses, I had very little. I had very little budget for marketing. I became a marketer, but I knew I couldn't do print and TV and radio and the things that I had used at General Mills. So one of the things that I did at the very beginning was I identified a VIP list of people in the community that I wanted to make sure that they came in early. I also went around to all of the media outlets and I delivered a little Trasca lunchbox, which had a TV, it had a sample of our coffee, it had a free panino coupon like you have, different things so that I could hook them. All of the publishers, all of the editors, I went around and met with them. So I had a lot of press very early on. And then the VIPs were people in the community like this lady Erin that I know, who has an enormous network of people, and this other lady who I know has a broad reach, within some of the businesses in the area. So I really targeted in a very, in a genuine manner. I mean, I wanted them to know what I was doing, and I wanted them to have a good experience with it. Please bring your family in. I would love to, host your family for a dinner. I want you to know about Trasca, and then I knew as a businesswoman that they would So that was pretty, I think, impactful. Now to talk to the digital front. Social media has been a big component of our business since the beginning, mostly because it's free, right? I also had some experience from my days in big brands to know how to build that social presence, and everything has been done in my voice since the beginning. Now I have taught people how to use my voice, but I am extremely persistent and consistent with the voice. I try to have the character that I want the brand to perceive. I communicate with every single person that comes onto our social media, especially if they have a complaint. So those are just the pieces. I have used SEO since the beginning as well, trying to make sure that we're in good search rankings. Our presence on like Yelp, Google reviews, Facebook reviews, things like that are obviously very important to a restaurant as well. So I've always tried to maintain those.
Hi, Michelle James,
Yeah.
Business Advisor at Space Coast Credit Union. Awesome presentation. I was hoping you were going to say when you said your innovation badass, that was going to be your tattoo, because I think that's awesome.
Maybe.
But I love innovation. So as I work with small business owners, innovation is a powerful thing. And I was just wondering if you have any just basic suggestions of people in small businesses that are just industry specific. I mean, innovation is powerful if you can channel it. But how do you get people out of their heads or their industry specific to just channel some of that? Like, what are some basic starting points to get them out of it?
That's a great question. So I counsel a lot of businesses, and I teach a lot of workshops, and I'll give you a couple of the principles that I teach. I actually was sharing this with Michael. It is so much easier for people to practice innovation when they're practicing on someone else's problem. So if at the very beginning, especially when you're trying to get people out of their comfort zone and to challenge the status quo, have them practice on someone else's business. Hey, I've got a buddy who's got an auto detailing business. He's got this type of a challenge. What would you do? Now they're thinking about someone else's business, and they've lost that emotional connection, right? I don't have the budget to do it. What will legal say? What will my partners say? We tried that last year and it's not working. I mean, they get so wrapped up. People, very naturally get very wrapped up in the emotions of running their job, their business. But when it's someone else's, they're able to see a little bit bigger picture. So have them practice on someone else's problems. I was explaining to Michael, we have all sorts of businesses that we practice on. One of them is the car buying process, because inherently people hate car buying, right? It's just a painful process. So we try to innovate. How can you take the tools that we teach and apply it to buying a new car? How can that dealer make a change? How can they innovate to be a better, more customer-centric experience? So anyways, that's one of the fun experiences. And I think the second thing that I was going to share with you was just to have them look at other people in the world, other businesses in the world that are solving similar challenges, and then look at what they're doing and apply it back to their business. So we call this, well, there's all sorts of things, but role storming or borrowed idea. Go out and find where someone else, and it should be, if done well, a disparate business. The travel industry, the sports industry, what someone is doing in Europe or Australia. How can this business take what they're doing and apply it back to solve the problem? So those are just two ideas to get people started. Yeah.
Hey Sarah, Michael Zaharias. I wanted to say a really great job for your first 1 million cups presentation. I think you knocked it out of the park. My question is related to your restaurant business. You mentioned that you went into a location that had previous restaurants that failed in that location before. You had a couple of headwinds. So now that you're 4.5 years into being in business there, has that spurred other restaurants to invest in the area where your location is, and there's a sort of a multiplier effect that's happening? Or are you guys the only one and you're dominating in that location where you're located?
Yeah. I mean, I would say good question. So the strange answer is that there were a lot of restaurants, then they tore them down to redo the center, and then now there are restaurants again. So the good thing about the timing at which we negotiated our rent was that we were the only one, and we were almost anchoring the center. The bad news is, as soon as they fixed the center, now more restaurants came in. And if you know Metro Diner, they came into our center and took a good chunk of our business for a little while. I mean, just like any other entrepreneur, I don't sleep at night for certain things, right? Panera is coming into town in the next couple of weeks. So I mean, I'm just hardcore thinking of ways to compete against a corporate entity. How can we continue to battle? How can we continue to have the support of the community with this convenient drive-through? You get the same thing. I mean, they're good for what they do, but you know, I have to battle them now. So the location we chose, first and foremost, was in a spot that I knew wasn't going anywhere. Meaning, the PGA Tour has their headquarters, and the TBC Sawgrass is within a couple blocks from me. That's not going anywhere for the next 50, 100 years, right? So I knew that there would be a draw to the area, even if something else happens in the area. There's an economic downturn, whatever. So I tried to stay as close to that as I possibly could. We have 2 major hotels right by us, which gives us about 50% of our business. So 50% are loyal people from the community that come in all the time, like regulars, 50% come in from the hotels. And it's pretty standard that way, even through our seasonality. So I wanted to have that kind of traffic coming in from outside sources, and to station myself by something that I knew wasn't going anywhere. So I would say, like, my other things were like, put it by a college, put it by a headquarters, like another major headquarters that I knew would be stationary. So it has worked out. I think we have battled some challenges. So I couldn't make the profitability work until I opened up 3 day parts. So we originally were a lunch and dinner restaurant, but we have a fairly big space. So the problem was I couldn't pay the rent and all the utilities and all the other things and the labor, et cetera, without opening up for breakfast. So now we are open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner all 7 days of the week. Can you imagine how challenging that is? I have 5 children. So,
Yes.
yeah, but I mean, as business owners, right, we have to make changes. That was a pivot point for us. We have to do that. We have a kick-ass brunch and a killer breakfast, so it really worked out, and we serve full bean coffee, which is amazing. So we're very, very blessed in that, but there's different things about the location. If I had had a smaller location, I probably wouldn't be open for breakfast. So, yeah. Yeah.
What are some, Tina with Access Senior Resource and Consulting, great presentation, by the
Thank
way.
you very
What
much.
are some things that you're thinking about doing now that you see that you have other restaurants that are gonna be very competitive and that's, you know, more franchise than you are? So what are
Yes.
some of the things that you're thinking out of the box doing?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, some of the exercises that my leadership team did, and by that I mean my managers, right? I mean, it's not General Mills where we have VPs of marketing, and I have my managers, but I empower them like they're the VPs of a brand. So we set out and did all of the restaurants in the area, going from McDonald's, and I mean no disrespect to McDonald's, but need state, cost, experience, and then going all the way up to Ruth's Chris, costs, experience, etc. So where was our niche? We tried to figure out, we come in right in the middle. We're an artisan restaurant, we're for families, we're not super expensive, but we're not value priced either. You have to come in and understand that you're getting a $10 sandwich. I mean, it's $10, it's not Subway. We make our own dough, we make all of our sauces, our own soups, our dressings, etc. Anyway, point being, we realized that the artisan quality and the local ingredients are different than Panera can ever do. So we partnered with a couple of local suppliers. We actually are changing over all of our salads to an aquaponics supplier on August 1st. So we will have clean salads on August 1st, meaning no GMO, meaning aquaponic lettuces, all organic, etc. So try to beat that Panera. Yes.
Peter Maselli, Raposa Perry Young, CPA is an advisor. Up in the Northeast, we used to tell our clients to build their business as if they're going to franchise it. Do you believe in that concept? And can you please open up a place down here?
Oh, that's very nice of you. Oh gosh. You know, we get approached by investors and folks all the time that want us to expand. And, you know, I've always felt like I don't want to grow too fast. I think the folks that grow too fast, and there's a number of examples, that I just feel like have lost sight of who they were. And I think one of the things, and it's probably my downfall as well, I'm very principled, so the service and the food quality are the things that are the most important to me. And I feel like if I go that route, I will lose control. The profit becomes so important at that point, and the things that matter, taking care of your employees, making sure, I mean, we've built a family. When you're a franchise, oftentimes people lose sight of that. Now, if I was to find the right partner that had the right philosophies and the right capital, that could be a possibility, so never say never. But I haven't found the right person yet that I feel like can help me bring that vision to life on a larger scale. Until I do, and if I never do, that is just fine with me. I am not in this for the money, believe it or not. I feel like my legacy is bigger than just the money, and if I can serve my community and frankly teach my children some skills, all 5 of the children know how to do things at the restaurant that I think are pretty important, like clean toilets. And I will have done the right thing for me, so.
All right, round of applause for Sarah. Yeah, that was excellently done. Michael, did you say this was your first presentation? Congratulations. There you go. You did a good job. You can have a sign for us. And I'm going to ask you a favor. You can pull one card out of there. We will give away one of these. And Thais, I believe you have an announcement?
I do.
Lori? Ready to have one of these?
Yes.
Can we pull somebody up?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward. Pay it forward, folks.
That's so funny, yeah.
That's right. Okay. Michelle James.
Good job,
Okay, appreciate it. All right. Thais, you have an announcement?
Hi, you guys. Thais from the Thais Art Gallery and Studio in Ormond Beach. This Saturday, July 27th, we're going to have our Christmas in July in Ormond Beach. All the stores are going to be open on Granada. We have a shuttle that takes you from one store to another. Everybody has a special discount for the day, and the shuttle is going to run from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. So come this Saturday and do some Christmas shopping.
Wonderful. Anybody else have any special events, anything going on this week, Johnny? Johnny does. Here we go.
All right, again, guys, trading the camera for a guitar, so.
Take a photo of you.
No, I'm good, thanks. Better behind the lens. So tonight from at Caribbean Jack's, right there on the road, as long as it's not completely ridiculously weather rained out, from 6 to 10, I'll be out there doing songs you probably know by heart and some of mine too, so come out.
All right.